The grand meeting hall of the Galactic Council floated in space like a massive crystal. Inside, representatives from 40 different alien species sat in their assigned places. The hall had been safe for 12,000 years. No one had ever attacked it. Everyone believed it was impossible to break into. Ambassador Kong Hun-woo sat at the human table. He wore a simple black suit with a blue tie. On his left stood Lee Nari, and on his right stood Park Jin-ho. Both wore black suits like their ambassador. They stood very still with their hands behind their backs. They carried nothing. No guns, no knives, no energy shields. Nothing at all. The other aliens noticed this and whispered to each other. The tall Therian ambassador had 4 bodyguards covered in thick armor plates. Each one carried a plasma rifle that glowed blue. The insect-like Quellan representative had guards with personal energy shields that hummed softly. Even the small Palithian delegation had guards wearing combat suits with built-in weapons. Only the humans stood there in plain clothes with empty hands. A large alien with purple scales leaned toward his companion. Look at the humans. They send guards with no weapons at all. How foolish. Do they think this is a game? His companion, a being made of living crystal, flickered in agreement. I heard their planet is primitive. Perhaps they do not understand proper security. Hyunwoo heard them, but said nothing. His face remained calm. Nari and Jin-ho did not move or react. They had heard such comments many times before. The council meeting began. Trade agreements were being discussed. The Virildian sector wanted to establish new shipping routes through human space. It was boring work, but important. Hyunwoo presented Earth's position clearly and waited for responses. Everything seemed normal. Then the alarms started screaming. The main doors exploded inward. Smoke filled the entrance. Through the smoke came soldiers in heavy combat armor. They moved in formation, their weapons already firing. These were Vrexian raiders, members of a warlord clan. Known for their brutality and disregard for laws, the Council's security forces reacted immediately. The insectoid guards rushed forward, their mandibles clicking war cries. The crystalline sentinels formed defensive walls. But the Vrexian raiders had come prepared with military-grade weapons and battle armor. The first line of Council security fell within seconds. Plasma fire cut through their defenses like they were paper. The insectoid warriors tried to fight back, but there were too many raiders with too much firepower. Panic spread through the chamber. The Therian ambassadors for guards moved to protect her, raising their weapons. The raiders focused fire on them. All 4 guards went down in a brilliant flash of plasma energy. The ambassador screamed and dove under her table. The Quellan guards activated their energy shields, creating a protective bubble around their representative. The raiders simply increased their weapon power. The shields flickered and died. The guards collapsed. All around the hall, alien ambassadors ran for cover. Some tried to reach the emergency exits, but the raiders had blocked them. Others hid under their tables or behind overturned chairs. The sounds of weapons fire, screaming, and destruction filled the air. 40 Vrexian raiders now controlled the council chamber. They spread out in practiced patterns, securing every exit and corner. Their commander, a massive warrior with scars covering his armor, strode to the center of the hall. His voice boomed through a translator device. "Attention, council members. You are now prisoners of the Vrexian warlord clans. Your governments will pay for your release. Resist and die." Most of the ambassadors stayed hidden, shaking with fear. But Hyunwoo remained in his seat. He adjusted his tie calmly, as if the chaos around him was merely a minor interruption. The Vrexian commander noticed him. He walked toward the human delegation, his heavy boots making the floor shake with each step. His soldiers followed, weapons pointed at Hyunwoo. "You there, human? You are either very brave or very stupid." The commander stopped 3 meters away. "I expected your guards to at least try to protect you. But look, they just stand there like statues. Did Earth send you here to die?" Hyunwoo stood slowly. "Actually, Earth sent me here to negotiate trade agreements. You are interrupting important work." The raiders laughed. It sounded like grinding metal. The commander stepped closer, his weapon raised. Your species sends guards without weapons. Without armor. Without even basic combat gear. What did you think would happen in a real crisis? Nari and Jinho had not moved. They still stood in their positions, hands behind their backs, faces showing no emotion. But something had changed. Their eyes were different now. They were no longer guards standing at attention. They were predators measuring their prey. The commander saw Nari first. She was small compared to the aliens, maybe 160 centimeters tall. She looked young, perhaps in her late 20s. You send children to guard your ambassador. The ape spawn of Earth are even more foolish than we thought. He raised his weapon toward her. Perhaps I will make an example of... He never finished his sentence. Nari moved. One moment she was standing still. The next moment she was in motion. Her body became a blur of speed that should not have been possible. She crossed the distance between them in less than 1 second. Her hand struck the commander's weapon arm with precise force. The weapon fell from his grip. Her other hand moved to his neck. There was a sharp crack. The commander's eyes went wide with shock. He fell to the floor unconscious, his neck intact, but his nervous system temporarily shut down from the pressure point strike. The chamber went completely silent. Every raider, every ambassador, every survivor stared at the small human woman standing over the fallen commander. Ginho moved next. The real fight was about to begin. The Vrexian raiders stood frozen for one precious second, unable to believe what they had just seen. Their commander, the strongest warrior in their clan, lay unconscious on the floor. Taken down by a small human female who carried no weapons, that second of hesitation cost them everything. Ginho launched himself forward. He moved low and fast, staying below the firing line of the raiders' weapons. His first target was a raider standing 5 meters away. Before the alien could aim his weapon, Jinho's foot connected with the side of the raider's knee. The joint bent in a direction it was not meant to bend. The raider screamed and fell. Ginho caught the falling plasma rifle before it hit the ground. His hands moved with incredible speed. He pressed 3 points on the weapon in quick succession. The rifle came apart into 5 separate pieces. He threw 2 of the pieces like throwing knives. They flew through the air and struck 2 raiders in the narrow gaps of their armor right at the neck joints. Both raiders went down, unable to breathe properly. Nari was already engaging 3 more raiders. She moved between them like water flowing around rocks. One raider swung his armored fist at her head. She ducked under it, stepped inside his guard, and struck his elbow joint with the bottom of her palm. The arm broke. The raider's own armor worked against him, rigid plates preventing him from pulling away from her strike. Another raider fired his weapon at her. Nari was already moving. The plasma bolt missed her by centimeters and hit the first raider instead, burning through his damaged armor. She grabbed the shooter's weapon arm, turned her body, and used his own momentum to flip him over her shoulder. He crashed into 2 more raiders. Tangling them all together on the floor, the watching ambassadors could barely follow what was happening. The 2 humans moved so fast that their bodies blurred. Every movement had a purpose. No energy was wasted. Each strike landed exactly where it needed to disable, but not kill. 10 seconds had passed since Nari dropped the commander. 15 raiders were already down. The remaining raiders finally organized themselves. They formed a firing line and opened up with concentrated plasma fire. The chamber filled with deadly energy bolts. But Nari and Jinho were no longer where the raiders were aiming. Jinho had rolled behind a stone pillar. Nari had dropped and slid across the smooth floor, moving beneath the firing line. She came up behind 2 raiders and struck them both in the back of their knees with perfectly placed kicks. They went down hard. A raider managed to grab Nari from behind, wrapping his armored arms around her in a crushing hold. He was twice her size, and his armor made him even stronger. He laughed. Gotcha, little human. Nari didn't struggle against the hold. Instead, she drove her heel down onto his foot, crushing the bones inside his boot. As his grip loosened from the pain, she threw her head backward into his face. The raider's helmet cracked. She twisted in his weakened grip, grabbed two of his fingers, and bent them back until they broke. The raider released her with a howl. She finished him with an elbow strike to his temple that shut down his consciousness immediately. Jinho faced 5 raiders at once. They had learned to keep their distance and were trying to surround him. Smart tactics. But they were thinking like soldiers fighting a soldier. They needed to think like prey fighting a predator. One raider shot at Jinho's feet, trying to limit his movement. Jinho jumped, twisted in midair, and landed on the raider's extended weapon arm. He ran up the arm, using it like a ramp, and kicked the raider in the face mask. The mask shattered. Before he landed, Jinho grabbed another raider's shoulder plate and swung himself around. Using the raider as a shield against the others, the other raiders hesitated, not wanting to shoot their comrade. That hesitation was fatal. Jinho struck pressure points on the raider he was using as a shield, paralyzing him instantly. He dropped the body and moved through the group like a whirlwind. Strikes 2 throats, knees, elbows, and nerve clusters. Each raider fell in turn. 20 seconds had passed. 30 raiders were down. 10 remained. These last 10 tried to retreat to the exit, planning to escape and regroup. But Nari was already there. She had circled around during the fight, cutting off their escape route. They turned to face her, weapons raised. She smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of Earth's apex predator cornering its prey. The first raider charged her with a combat blade. She sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, and used a joint lock to force him to drop the weapon. The blade fell. She caught it midair, reversed her grip, and threw it. The blade spun through the air and stabbed into another raider's weapon, destroying its firing mechanism. The remaining raiders fired at her all at once. Nari moved. She didn't run away from the plasma fire. She moved through it, reading the angles of the shots, predicting where each bolt would go, and staying in the gaps between them. To the watching aliens, it looked like magic. To Nari, it was just training and practice. She reached the first raider and struck him 3 times in 1 second. Throat, solar plexus, knee. He collapsed. She used his falling body as a step, jumping over him to reach the next raider. Her hand shot out and struck a pressure point on his neck. He froze, paralyzed but conscious. Jinho joined her, engaging the last 5 raiders. They worked together now, moving in perfect coordination. When one attacked high, the other went low. When one drew fire, the other struck from behind. They had trained together for years. They knew each other's movements without needing to speak. The last raider standing tried to run. Jinho threw a piece of broken weapon at his legs. The raider tripped and fell. Nari was there instantly, pinning him down with a knee on his back and a hand controlling his head. 27 seconds had passed since the fight began. 40 Vrexian raiders lay on the floor. None were dead. Most were unconscious. Some were paralyzed. A few were simply too injured to move. But all were alive, and all were defeated. Nari and Jinho stood up and returned to their positions beside Ambassador Hunwo. They placed their hands behind their backs again. Their breathing was only slightly faster than normal. Their suits were not even wrinkled. The chamber was completely silent, except for the groaning of defeated raiders. Hunwo straightened his tie and looked around at the shocked alien ambassadors. "Well then," he said calmly, "shall we continue with the trade negotiations? I believe we were discussing shipping routes." Nobody answered. They were all still trying to understand what they had just witnessed. The Galactic Council Emergency Committee met 3 days after the attack. Representatives from 20 different species filled the secure meeting room. Everyone wanted answers. How did 2 unarmed humans defeat 40 armed raiders in less than 30 seconds? Chairman Velthros opened the meeting. He was a tall, thin being whose species had evolved in low gravity. His people were peaceful and academic. They studied problems instead of fighting them. "We have reviewed all recordings of the incident. We have interviewed witnesses. We have consulted experts in combat, biology, and evolutionary science. What we have learned is ... disturbing." He activated a holographic display. It showed Earth spinning slowly in space. The planet looked beautiful with its blue oceans and white clouds. This is the human homeworld. At first look, it seems pleasant, but appearances are deceiving. The display zoomed in to show Earth's surface. Mountains, forests, oceans, and deserts appeared. Earth is what we classify as a Class 12 death world. Only 3 other known species evolved on worlds this dangerous. A Quellan representative raised one of her 4 arms. What makes it so dangerous? It looks like a normal planet. Velthros brought up new data. First, the gravity. Earth's gravity is 1.8 times stronger than the galactic standard. Humans grow up carrying almost twice the weight that most of us do. Their bones are denser. Their muscles are stronger. Every movement they make takes more force than ours. He showed images of human skeletons next to other species. The human bones were thick and heavy. Second, the atmosphere. Earth's air is 21% oxygen. This is extremely high. It makes their metabolism run faster. They heal quicker. They have more energy. But it also made their evolution very competitive. The display changed to show Earth's animals. Lions chasing zebras. Eagles diving for fish. Sharks hunting in oceans. Spiders catching flies in webs. Everything on Earth evolved to either hunt or avoid being hunted. For millions of years, humans were both. They were prey for large predators. They were also hunters themselves. A crystalline delegate flickered with concern. Both prey and predator. How is that possible? It forced them to develop unique abilities, Velthros explained. Look at their eyes. The display showed a human face with forward-facing eyes. They have binocular vision for judging distance accurately. This is a predator trait. They can track fast-moving objects. They can see in color to identify ripe fruit or healthy prey, he continued. Their bodies can run for hours without stopping. On Earth, they would chase prey until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. No other species on their planet could match their endurance. They would literally run their prey to death. The room fell quiet. The idea was horrifying to many of the peaceful species present. Velthros showed more data. But what makes humans truly dangerous is not their bodies. It is their minds combined with their bodies. When they developed intelligence and civilization, they did not lose their predator instincts. They refined them. They created something called martial arts. The display showed humans practicing various fighting techniques. Punching, kicking, grappling, throwing. For over 5,000 years, humans have studied combat. They have created hundreds of different fighting systems. Each system is designed to use the human body as a weapon. They teach how to strike pressure points to paralyze, how to break joints, how to choke, how to kill with bare hands. He pulled up profiles of Nari and Jinho. Lee Nari has studied martial arts since she was 5 years old. That is 23 years of training. She holds master ranks in 4 different fighting systems. Park Jinho started at age 4. He has trained for 28 years. He holds master ranks in 6 systems. A Therian elder spoke up. But training cannot explain what we saw. The speed, the precision. They moved like they could predict the future. Not prediction, Velthros said. Experience. Human military forces train their soldiers constantly. These diplomatic guards practice combat for 4 hours every single day. They have fought in simulations thousands of times. They study tactics, strategies, and techniques. When the raiders attacked, Narray and Jinho were not surprised or afraid. They had trained for exactly this situation. He showed brain scans. Look at their neural activity during the fight. Most species show panic responses when attacked. Increased heart rate, rushed breathing, scattered thinking. Humans can control these responses. They can keep their heart rate steady. They can think clearly under extreme stress. This is also part of their training. Quellan representative spoke again. But they carried no weapons. Why not give them guns or energy blades? They would have been even more dangerous. Velthros smiled, though his species' smile looked strange. That is the brilliant part. Weapons can be detected. Weapons can be confiscated. Weapons can malfunction or run out of power. But human guards are weapons. They cannot be detected by scanners because there is nothing to detect. They are just living beings. You cannot confiscate their training. Their bodies never run out of power. He paused to let this sink in. There is also a psychological element. The raiders saw two humans with no weapons and assumed they were weak. They underestimated the threat. By the time they realized their mistake, it was too late. The committee members looked at each other nervously. One delegate finally asked the question everyone was thinking. Are all humans this dangerous? No, Velthros answered. Most humans are peaceful. They are artists, scientists, teachers, and parents. But every human has the potential for combat built into their biology. Even average humans are stronger and tougher than most galactic species. And humans who choose to train for combat become something the galaxy has never seen before. He brought up a final image. It showed a simple graph comparing combat effectiveness. Human diplomatic guards rated higher than most military species with advanced weapons. We have been thinking about security wrong. We believed that better technology made better protection. Humans prove that the best technology is millions of years of evolution on a death world. The committee voted on new security classifications. A new category was created. Organic weapons class, baseline biology. Humans were the first and only species placed in this category. The Therian Elder had one last question. Should we fear humans? Velthros considered this carefully. Fear? No. Respect. Absolutely. Humans could be the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. But they choose to be diplomats instead. They choose to protect rather than conquer. That choice makes them valuable allies. But it also means we should never, ever make them our enemies. The meeting adjourned. Every delegate left with a new understanding of humanity. The small species from the death world was not weak. They were just very, very good at hiding how dangerous they truly were. News of what happened in the council chamber spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communications. Within 2 weeks, every civilized world knew about the 2 human guards who defeated 40 armed raiders with their bare hands. The story grew with each telling, but the truth needed no exaggeration. The recordings spoke for themselves. Ambassador Choi Minho sat in Earth's embassy on the council station, reviewing the flood of requests that arrived daily. He was older than Hyunwoo, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been a diplomat for 30 years and thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. Another request from the Palithian government, his assistant said, placing a data pad on his desk. They want to hire human guards for their ambassador. They are offering triple the standard rate. Minho shook his head. Add it to the list with the others. We have 47 similar requests this week alone. But the requests were not just about hiring guards. Several species wanted something different. They wanted to learn. The Telvanni Military Academy requested human instructors to teach combat techniques. The Quellan Defense Force wanted to exchange officers for training. Even the peaceful Therian, who had not fought a war in 5,000 years, inquired about self-defense courses. The most surprising request came from the Crithian Dominion. The Crithians were conquerors. For 300 years, they had expanded their territory by force. Their warrior caste was famous across the galaxy. They were huge, standing 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and natural armor plates on their bodies. They won battles through strength and numbers. Now they wanted to test themselves against humans. The request was formal and respectful. The Crithian High Command wanted to arrange exhibition matches between their champions and human guards. Not to start a war, but to learn. They wanted to understand how smaller, weaker beings could defeat larger. Stronger Ones Manate discussed this with Earth's government for 2 days. Finally, they agreed. Captain Shin Yuna would lead a team of 6 human guards to the matches. She was 40 years old, small even by human standards, but she had been training in martial arts since childhood. She was the senior instructor for all diplomatic guards. The matches were held on a neutral space station. Thousands watched either in person or through broadcasts. The Crithian champions entered first, massive and intimidating in their traditional warrior garments. The crowd roared approval. These were their heroes, undefeated in hundreds of battles. Then the humans entered. 6 people in simple training clothes. The tallest was barely 180 centimeters. The crowd went silent. How could these small beings possibly compete? The first match began. A young Krithian warrior named Kresh faced a human guard named Park Deho. Kresh had all the advantages. He was taller, heavier, stronger, and had 4 arms to Deho's 2. The match started. Kresh charged forward, trying to overwhelm Deho with pure force. But Deho was not there when Kresh arrived. He had moved to the side, letting Kresh's own momentum carry him past. As the Krithian stumbled, Deho struck the back of his knee. Kresh fell. Confused but not defeated, Kresh stood and tried again. This time, he was more careful, using all 4 arms to grab and control his opponent. He caught Deho in a powerful hold. But Deho did not struggle against the strength. Instead, he found a weak point in the grip, twisted his body in an unexpected direction, and escaped. Before Kresh could react, Deho had him in a joint lock. One of Kresh's arms was hyperextended. The pain was intense. Kresh submitted. The crowd could not believe it. Their champion had lost in less than 3 minutes. The matches continued. Each Krithian warrior was skilled and powerful. Each human guard was smaller and weaker. But each human guard won. They won through technique. They won through speed. They won through knowledge of anatomy and leverage. They won by turning their opponent's advantages into weaknesses. The final match was between the Krithian Supreme Champion, Voraj, and Captain Yuna. Voraj had never lost a fight in his entire life. He had defeated warriors from a dozen different species. He was the pride of his people. Yuna bowed respectfully before the match began. Voraj returned the bow. He respected her courage even if he did not believe she could win. The match started. Voraj moved carefully, having watched the previous fights. He did not charge. He did not try to overpower. He tried to be strategic. But Yuna had trained for 35 years. She had fought against larger, stronger opponents her entire life. She knew what Voraj would do before he did it. She let him make the first move. He reached for her with 2 arms while keeping 2 in reserve for defense. Smart. But she had expected this. She moved inside his reach, too close for him to use his long arms effectively. She struck pressure points on his lower arms, temporarily numbing them. Then she moved to his back, out of reach of his upper arms. Voraj tried to turn, but Yuna was faster. She jumped onto his back, wrapped her legs around his torso, and applied an arm lock to his upper right arm. She pulled the arm at an angle that caused immense pain without breaking it. Voraj tried to use his other arms to remove her, but she had positioned herself perfectly. He could not reach her without dislocating his own shoulder. He had a choice: submit or be injured. Voraj was a warrior, but he was not a fool. He submitted. The crowd was absolutely silent. Then, slowly, they began to cheer. Not for their champion's victory, but for the lesson they had witnessed. Strength alone was not enough. Technique could overcome power. After the matches, Voraj approached Yuna. He bowed deeply, lower than tradition required. "I have trained my entire life to be strong," he said. "You have taught me that I have been training wrong. Would you teach me the right way?" Yuna smiled. "I would be honored." Within a month, the Krithian government officially requested that Earth establish a training academy on their homeworld. They wanted their warriors to learn human martial arts. They wanted to combine their natural strength with human technique. But the Krithians were not the only ones. Dozens of species made similar requests. They did not want humans to fight their wars. They wanted humans to teach them to fight smarter instead of harder. Minho ported all of this back to Earth. The response from Earth's government was unanimous. They would share their knowledge, but they would do it carefully, teaching not just technique but also philosophy. Martial arts were not just about fighting. They were about discipline, respect, and knowing when not to fight. The galaxy was changing. Humans had shown that the deadliest warriors could also be the wisest teachers, and everyone wanted to learn from them. 6 months after the Council Chamber attack, the Galactic Council met again to discuss something that had never been proposed before: a new treaty called the Covenant of Empty Hands. Ambassador Kang Hoonwoo stood at the human delegation table. Nari and Ginho stood beside him as always, their hands behind their backs, their faces calm. Around the repaired chamber, representatives from every major species watched and waited. The Therian elder, Ambassador Kelra, spoke first. Her voice trembled slightly. She had been there during the attack. She had watched her 4 bodyguards die trying to protect her. I have spent 200 years in diplomatic service. I believed that the best protection came from the best weapons. Better armor, stronger shields, more powerful guns. I was wrong. She gestured toward Nari and Ginho. These 2 humans showed me the truth. The best protection comes not from technology, but from training, from skill, from the courage to stand between danger and those you protect using nothing but your own body and your own knowledge. She pulled up the proposed treaty on the main display. The Covenant of Empty Hands would allow any species to designate guards as organic class, and permit them to serve without traditional weapons. But there would be requirements, strict training standards, regular testing, and most importantly, a code of conduct that emphasizes protection over aggression. A Polythian delegate raised his hand. Who would set these standards? Who would do the testing? We would, Hyunwoo said simply. Earth has offered to establish the Galactic Defense Academy. We will train guards from any species who wish to learn. We will teach martial arts, defensive tactics, and control techniques. But we will also teach something more important. What could be more important than fighting skills? Asked a young Telvanni representative. Hunhua smiled. The wisdom to know when not to fight. The discipline to use minimum force. The respect for life that prevents you from killing when you could. These things separate a warrior from a thug, a protector from an attacker. The chamber buzzed with discussion. Some delegates were enthusiastic. Others were concerned. A Vareldian senator stood to speak. His species were known for being cautious and suspicious. How do we know humans will not use this academy to train an army? How do we know you will not use your skills to conquer rather than protect? It was a fair question. The room fell silent, waiting for the answer. Hyunwoo looked at Nari and Ginho. They stepped forward. Nari spoke first. Her voice was quiet but clear. I began training when I was 5 years old. My teacher was an old woman named Kim Sora. She was 70 years old and weighed 45 kilograms. She could defeat men twice her size without effort. Do you know what she taught me first? She paused. Not how to punch. Not how to kick. She taught me to bow. She taught me respect. She taught me that martial arts exist to make the world safer, not more dangerous. Every day before training, we would repeat the student oath. I will use my skills only to protect. I will respect all life. I will never attack first. I will always seek peace before violence. Jinho spoke next. My first teacher was my grandfather, Choi Byung. He fought in Earth's old wars before we had space travel. He had killed men in combat and it haunted him for the rest of his life. He taught me every technique he knew. But he also taught me that winning a fight is easy. Living with the consequences is hard. He made me promise that I would only fight to protect others, never for pride or anger. Hyunwoo nodded. This is what we will teach at the academy. Yes, we will teach combat skills. But we will teach them wrapped in philosophy and ethics. Students will learn that power without wisdom is just violence. Strength without compassion is just cruelty. The Therian elder stood again. I support this treaty. I support this academy. My people have not fought a war in 5,000 years because we chose peace. But the attack on this chamber showed me that peace is not the absence of violence. Peace is the presence of people willing and able to protect it. I vote yes. One by one, other delegates stood and voted. The Crithian representative voted yes, explaining that his people had already seen the value of human teaching. The Quellan voted yes. The Telvanni voted yes. Even the cautious Vareldians eventually voted yes. The Covenant of Empty Hands passed with unanimous support. 1 year later, the Galactic Defense Academy opened on a small moon orbiting a beautiful garden world. The facility was simple but functional. Training halls, classrooms, living quarters, and medical facilities. Nothing fancy, nothing military. Just a place to learn. The first class included students from 37 different species. Some were tall, some were short, some had 2 arms, some had 6. Some had exoskeletons, some had tentacles. All were different, but all were there to learn. Captain Shin Yuna stood before them on the first day. Behind her stood Nari, Jinho, and 10 other human instructors. "Welcome," Yuna said. "You come from different worlds. You have different bodies. You speak different languages. But you are all here for the same reason. You want to learn to protect." She pointed to the emblem on the wall. To open hands, palms forward. This is our symbol. Empty hands. It represents 2 things. First, that we need no weapons because we are the weapons. Second, that our hands are open in peace, not closed in fists of anger. We are ready to fight, but we prefer not to. The first lesson began. Students learned to bow to show respect. They learned to fall safely, to protect their bodies. They learned basic stances, basic movements. It would be months before they learned actual combat techniques. First, they needed to learn the philosophy. A young Krithian student named Kelver asked, "When will we learn to fight like you did in the council chamber?" Yuna smiled. "You already are. Fighting is not just about punching and kicking. Fighting is about discipline, patience, understanding yourself and your opponent. The techniques will come, but the mindset must come first." Over time, the academy grew. More students arrived, more instructors joined. The graduates went back to their homeworlds and taught others. Slowly, the galaxy changed. The warlike species became more disciplined. The peaceful species became more confident. Everyone learned that strength and wisdom could exist together. Violence and peace were not opposites. True peace came from being capable of violence, but choosing not to use it. And throughout the galaxy, a new respect for humanity emerged. Not fear, not worship. Just simple respect. The small species from the Death World had taught everyone an important lesson. The deadliest weapon is the one that chooses not to fire. The strongest warrior is the one who fights only to protect in the council chamber. Kan Wu sat at the human delegation table. Nari and Jinho stood beside him as always. A new crisis was being discussed. Trade disputes, border disagreements, the normal business of civilization, and if another threat ever came, if someone ever again tried to attack the council, they would find something they did not expect. Not just a human guards with empty hands, but guards from dozens of species, all trained in the same philosophy, all ready to protect. The galaxy had learned, and it was safer for it.